Hello, my name is Jen Loki. It is September 20th, and we're going to talk about the integumentary system. I'm going to try really hard to remember every component because 5 minutes is a ridiculously short amount of time. I have no note cards anywhere. Sorry if this is making you nauseous. It's kind of making me nauseous. Okay. All right. The integumentary system is made of the cutaneous membrane and the subcutaneous membrane and the accessory structures that are found in both. So before I get started, my career path is probably going in the direction of working with athletes, maybe as a physical therapist, possibly, I don't know, orthopedics. I'm not really sure, but I did find two aspects of the integumentary system specifically tying to these things. One is callus formation, which sounds like a small thing until you have giant calluses, and as a runner, that is potentially hazardous. And the other thing is I ran a marathon this last weekend in the mountains, and a giant chunk of my heel right here sloughed off in one large sheet of skin. So that I'm going to refer to when I explain about the stratum spinosum and connections between cells. Okay, so the subcutaneous layer is made of loose connective tissue, areolar tissue, and adipose tissue, fat. And so that is below and helps insulate and also kind of separate and allow the two layers, the two parts to below and above to move independently of each other. It's also called the superficial fascia as well as the hypodermis. Okay. Then you have the dermis. The dermis is made of the papillary layer, which is superficial to the reticular layer. The reticular layer is made of dense, irregular connective tissue and houses a lot of those accessories, structures. And the papillary layer on top is made of loose connective tissue. And then between the papillary layer of the dermis and the epidermis, you have a basement membrane that sort of separates the two, and along which ridges form that are the origination of our fingerprints. So if you want to scrape your fingerprints off in order to commit a really bad crime, you're going to have to go really deep. So I just wouldn't recommend that. Okay. The accessory structures found in sort of originating in the dermis and then they extend through the epidermis out onto the surface of the skin include hair, nails, sweat glands, and sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands, which are activated at puberty, but I think also at birth, because I had a kid with some serious baby acne. It was really unfortunate, but it went away, and he's very cute. So when those glands start to work, they kind of overproduce sebum, which is that oily stuff that has that element of antimicrobial protection. And these sebaceous glands can secrete into a hair follicle and then coat the hair, which kind of then transfers up to the epidermis, or can dump directly into a sebaceous follicle, no hair, just goes straight to the surface. And this protects the epidermal layer and keeps it from drying out. There's also sweat glands. There's the apocrine glands that produce the odoriferous sort of milky substance, and these glands are only in certain areas of the body. So armpits, nipples, groin. I have 2 teenage boys, so this kind of sweat gland I'm very familiar with it. The bacteria that feast on this sweat or this apocrine gland's secretion, it makes it smell even worse. So that is neat. Eccrine glands sweat glands are just all over the body, and they produce just sweat and natural perspiration that is 99% water. So that's sebaceous glands and sweat glands. We'll come back to hair and nails if we have time. Let's move more superficial to the epidermis. So the epidermis I found fascinating because there are 5 or 4 layers of these squamous epithelial cells that make this up. 2 of those layers are dead cells, yet still very important. So the deepest layer, stratum basale, is a layer that has stem cells called basal cells that differentiate into keratinocytes, which is the most abundant kind of cell in the epidermis. And they produce keratin, which together with keratin fibers and keratinohyalin produce a matrix that sort of hardens and helps protect what's underneath. The stratum spinosum is the layer the second to the deepest layer, and that is where those connections between the keratinocytes form and last longer than the keratinocyte itself, and that is why my heel sloughed off in a giant sheet. And then you have stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, which only is in the thick skin, the palms of your hands or the soles of your feet, and then you have the stratum corneum, which is the outermost layer, and that is basically a bunch of dead squamous epithelial cells, but again, they're tightly knit together. So that is our integumentary system. I didn't get to talk about melanocytes or Langerhans cells or Merkel cells, but that's okay. Next time.